We are on.
Recorded?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the 23rd Global Ask the Chief Forum. And as you have gotten, I guess, information and text from the support team, we're going to be reviewing a number of shorts, Disney shorts. I'll have Mrs.A run off the names of those shorts for me.
Let's see. The names are Float, Purl, Day and Night, and 20-something. Okay. And I'll show images if you like, or should I can do it later.
Okay, we can show images. I'm going to go through the exercise now.
Okay.
All right. So, starting with our exercise, bringing up that energy. Go clear yourselves. Bring that up to the surface. Starting now. 1. 2. We're just going to do 3 this time. And 3. Okay, now I'm going to prepare for the bump. Hands approximately 12 inches apart. Feel the energy growing in that space. Feel it in your hands. Whoever's not feeling it, let me know. Very good. I'm going to increase that. Anyone not feeling the increase, let me know. All right. Very good. We're going to take this energy, this nice ball of energy, and we're going to create containment. We're going to do 3. So starting now. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. From there, we're going to push that energy out. We're going to push that energy outward, covering our rooms, our space, covering the forum. And 4. Okay, very good. Mrs.A.
Yes, Chief.
So, we want to start with which short are you starting with?
We had the lineup with Purl first. Is that okay? Or something
Yeah, we can
else?
start with Purl.
Okay.
And those who've seen the short, and those who haven't, you said, were you able to find imagery for Purl, or that was one?
Yes, on YouTube.
Purl,
I found imagery on YouTube.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I want to show the,
Yes, I
the
will.
short image of the.
Yes, I will.
You want to show the image, or did you want to play that short?
If you think I can, I'll just play the short.
Okay, let's see how strong his arms are, because he's gonna.
I know, right?
Screen up the phone for about 7 minutes. So let's start out with that then.
Son, Jim tonight? Welcome to BRO Capital. Yeah, so you'll be up on the 4th floor with investments and, what? The Tigers are up by 20? Yes! Anyway, it's entry level, but your resume was by far the strongest. I'm sure you'll fit right in.
Thanks! I still think it's unbelievable that I'm really here.
Unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable.
Ugh, I'm so excited. I have a really good feeling about this.
You see, they hired a Wally.
Morning, gentlemen.
Hey, what's the difference between a porcupine and a BMW? With the porcupine, the bricks are on the outside.
Yeah. Good one. So, why do spiders weave webs? Because they don't know how to crochet.
Is that like a sport or something?
Like with the needles and, you know?
Hey guys, staff meeting.
So I'll pause right there just for, well, one, for my arm's sake, but also because there was a question submitted about that. One of the questions was the knot that she received in her leg an attachment? And you were saying that no, she got mad at the cup and then she hurt herself.
Yeah, it was just really just a frustration reaction. There are a lot of people who do things like that. They'll get frustrated about something and then they'll either lash out and punch a wall or kick something or whatever. So I wouldn't say that was an attachment. Actually had a client some time ago who would get angry if a store didn't have what he wanted, and on his way out, he yanked the door really hard and ended up yanking his arm out of his socket. So it's one of those types of reactions. It really has nothing to do with attachments or anything. It's just a reaction to frustration.
It does have to do with programming, yes, Chief?
Well, the programming, which you see, which I guess is supporting a programming in a sense. Yeah, it's supporting programming, really. The movies that you will see where someone's disappointed and they go home. Generally, it's like a man. A lot of the times, they'll go home and they'll trash his apartment, break things and so on and so forth. Usually, if it's portrayed as a woman losing her temper or whatever, like that way, she's usually breaking dishes and things like that. They do this gender-specific destruction stuff. So this is akin to that, but just on a smaller level, where she just, has to take it out on something, so she kicks his cup, and apparently the cup was, hard enough for her to like tangle up her yarn into a little knot. So.
And you're saying that attachments look for weak points, like predators look for weak things,
Mm-hmm.
and they can stay inside of an injury to either to slow down the healing process or just stay in there and feed off of the, pain.
Yeah, it's like an entryway or something. It's like a crack in the facade that you create through. Or, well, again, my sense of what accidents are not accidents. So, looking at it in that way, yeah, if it was like portrayed and as if she was like a human in form in that particular scene, what kind of injury would she have created? So that that would apply as well, like someone injuring themselves and creating a weakness in that part of the body. And a lot of times the weakness continues, or persists because the person remembers that particular incident or remembers that injury. So, for instance, she didn't break her leg or anything, but when someone breaks their leg, it's one of these traumatic types of memories and accidents where they will remember breaking a leg. Sometimes, if there's a scar left, every time they look at that scar, it's very like a loop that plays having to do with that injury. So, taking it a little further than just what they're showing on Purl, that is, those things are connected.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Stop there to read some other questions. So
Yeah, so we're going to do the questions.
yes, Chief.
All right, they haven't gone, you haven't gotten totally to the end of it yet.
No.
So we're going to address the questions.
Yes.
And then the one that has
Mhm.
to do with the end, then we'll,
Yes. So
okay.
one of the messages that some of the clients had kind of an idea that Purl was selling out. Like there's a phrase, don't change yourself to try to fit in, or be yourself and everything will fall into place, is a common saying that they'd like to know from a Neo Shamanic perspective, because you were saying that actually she didn't sell out, she learned something.
Yeah, and true, it can be taken a couple of ways. The sellout thing is brought to you by density. So it's like a blanket statement. If anyone does anything to, I would say, to accomplish whatever it is their goals are, and you or someone looking from the outside with this mindset sees this individual, in there with this particular group, they just assume that person's sold out, or they see her dressed, similar to these guys, she's sold out. When my point of view on it has to do with stealth, she's being stealthy, because she realizes that there's a wall up, against her the way that she came in, originally. And over the decades that I was running my business in New York, when I dealt with higher ups in certain companies who were clients of mine, there were a number of women in those, higher positions. And I would say all of them had a similar kind of, boys club persona. And I would say it was persona that they had to develop because it made it easier for them to do what they had to do. So a number of these women were middle-aged women who obviously had been through, I would say, something similar to a Purl, maybe. Some come in with that aggressive kind of thing, prepared to deal with the boys, and some learned like Purl did, how to deal with the boys. So we have this situation with the monetary system, and you need to have money in order to live well, or to live better, I should say. So, you do what you need to do in order to facilitate that. So not everyone is, on this path of enlightenment. Also, some are just, I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of myself, and that would be considered selling out to a lot of people. The concept of selling out goes through certain extremes that I ran into and that I know from other individuals personally, with certain, let's just say, businesses where everything that's under business and big business is nefarious. You have to get that through your mind, period. Everything having to do with corporations and things of that sort are nefarious. And with that, I feel inclined to even talk about the Apple Corporation, that it's a company, it's a corporation. There are those who literally talk to me about Apple like they're some kind of saints or something like that, when they're just another company, And we won't get into any of the recent issues that I've had, dealing with that particular, certain aspects and divisions of that company. But again, I would say that she's being, she's figuring things out for herself. And I wouldn't denigrate someone for trying to figure out how to do what they need to do to get the financial, capital that they need to move along in this game. Because in reality, it is a game. Corporations are things that are created by the game that really don't have any real viability in the sense of a holistic thing, or integrated into anything holistically. It is designed as part of the machine to destroy and to keep people in the chicken coop and so on and so forth. So anyway, with that, I'm trying to figure out whether I don't know whether to go further into it until after.
Well, I have something, Chief. Would you say that the line of what they call selling out is usually what it truly can be is losing your sense of dignity? you know, when when she goes out with the guys and eats wings or whatever, or basketball games, or drinking beer or hanging out with them, those are her experiences, but it wasn't like destroying her sense of dignity, was it?
No, again, she was just playing the game, and yeah, that didn't totally explain what my concept of would be considered selling out, which is still a blanket statement. It has to do with kowtowing in a certain way, kissing someone's feet or their butt, or a lot of the sexual stuff that goes on behind the scenes in these particular kinds of companies or whatever. Where as a woman, she's gonna have to put out in order to stay there, or in order to move up the ladder. And that does exist to some extent within those within those systems.
You called it the casting couch, Chief?
Well, yeah, in the movie industry, it's called the casting couch. And there's plenty of these wannabe producers who use that as a game. Or there was a thing some decades ago, probably maybe still goes on, with photographers who sees a pretty girl and says, I can, put a portfolio together for you, and you can be a model or something, and then come to this address. And they even portray it in movies, and it's not, a fake, it has happened, and I would imagine it still happens, where, some naive young girl who thinks, oh, I can be a model, and thinking that being a model is this great career, and she shows up and finds out it's just her and this guy or whatever. And a lot of times they end up being seduced. I even knew a photographer when I lived in New York, when I lived in Greenwich Village for a while, who that was one of his little schemes. So, that's not so much as selling out, that's actually being, I guess, I don't know, tricked or, in a certain way. Some of these girls do go on, through sexual favors, end up, doing certain things where where they are on magazine covers and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do a blatant statement about the modeling industry, but there's a lot of things. Any industry on this planet that's big industry, there's a lot of really just not very cool things that go on behind the scenes.
Yes, Chief.
So that again, I'm not even sure if that's called selling out. That's just another version, I guess, of something, but I don't know if that one would be correctly called selling out.
Okay.
So for me, selling out is really just denigrating yourself. And I don't think that Purl was denigrating herself. She was playing out a scenario and trying out an experiment, really. That's my interpretation, of course. I don't know what the writer of the script was thinking, except they have, I understand on a more simple level what they were thinking about, when it came to this. And probably near the end, it does have to do with, don't sell out, or don't forget who don't forget yourself when you're playing these types of scenarios or these types of games. Okay?
Yes. And Chief, you were talking about the difference between people who have, like, whenever Purl first showed up in the elevator, and he was like, oh, your credentials are really great. You're saying that reality has hit some people who graduate from college really hard, because the business, when they go into this business that they were, training to do in college, is very different atmosphere.
Yeah, and I have some personal experience with family members. Have a lot of women family units that I grew up with, and a number of them were dean's list, honor roll, always dean's list. Me, I struggled with that from time to time. Never got left back or failed any grades or anything. But the father even said, "Wow, you got by the skin of your teeth this time." That was usually his usual comment for me actually making it to the next grade. He worked for himself, and a lot of his work was very manual. And I had to work with him for a good number of years. From the time I was 12, I had to do heavy lifting. When I was younger, I'd just be on the scene with him at times when we were in school. And the units who did very, very well with their academics and everything, they went through, college and everything. They got out, and all of a sudden the real world hit them in the face. That there was the chauvinism on top of the racism and so on and so forth, but they were buying in one, let's say probably both were buying into this concept. If you get good grades and you do what you're supposed to do in school, you get all the gold stars and everything, life is going to be easy for you. We have a slot for you. We have a place for someone who's as smart academically as you are. Now, when I was running around with the father unit, I had to deal with the real world. I had observed him dealing with people on the levels that he worked on. And I noticed what reality was, how people really were out there, and how you had to finagle your way through things in order to get to the next step. I was under the illusion that because we were working lower, well, it depends on what level, even within what he was doing, there's low level, finance, and then there's higher level finance. He was kind of low to moderate, back and forth. And within that realm, there were these types of individuals, very unscrupulous individuals, people who I obviously knew were, denigrating him at times, but because he was, trying to take care of all these kids, there are certain things that he pretty much let wash over him, like water off of the duck. Also, he had his own way of getting back at some of these guys as well, which I'll leave that, to your imagination. But again, when I got out of school, I had an education that the ones who were just academics didn't have. So I did a lot better navigating the world than they did because I was in the real. So it's nothing compares to actual experience in the world. And folks who learn everything that that they know through books. I mean, I read my share of books. But you got to get out in the world to really know what the hell is going on.
Okay, Steve. I'll continue.
Oh, thank goodness you're still here. I had such a time trying to find this place. Oh, I missed my stop, and then I didn't know what floor we were on, so excuse me, sir. It's confirmation I was home early, so I went door to door on each place. Leave the knitting at your Nana's house. And I can't wait to be part of the team. Guys?
Hey, where are you going?
Hi, I'm Purl. I'm Lacey.
What are they doing?
I'm such a fright. Hey guys, this is Lacey. Welcome to BRO Capital. You'll be up on the 4th floor with investments.
Hey, it's still kind of unbelievable that I'm here.
I would say it's unbelievable.
I have a really good feeling about this.
Well, come on, let me show you around. Tell us all about yourself. We do love a good yarn.
Hey, Purl, you guys coming to swim tonight?
Is a wool sweater scratchy?
Okay. One of the questions was Purl reminded of who she is by the yellow bowl, or is she just easy to manipulate?
I would say she's easy. The character, I'm going for my own interpretation, of course. I wouldn't say that the character is easy to manipulate, but it did remind her of her, of who she was in the beginning. So as far as like going back to being who she was, I don't think she's going to go all the way back to who she was because she learned something that changed her. But the portrayal of men, which is not that far off. I definitely, as a dude, I've been around scenarios where there are guys who mind just, just like these guys, And one of the things that I think primarily in the West, when it comes to men, is empathy is bad. Having any empathy or for anyone, or looking, seeing how would you feel if you were on the outside, like Purl. And I would say that how these companies form and certain guys come in, because they're not all coming in as carbon copies. They come in and they start to emulate or mimic the more dominant characters in the company. That happens with everything, like on teams, on clubs, and any kind of social events and so on and so forth. There are dominant characters who usually influence what's going on. And so the influence there was the old boys club style thing. And so even in the last scene, so there's a guy that comes in, and he sounds like he's kind of like, not a macho type of guy from the way they have him speaking. So he might be some guy with, with more empathy. And after what, Purl literally infiltrated. So if we want to say her being clever, she infiltrated the company. Everything is performance in this world. And if you don't think everything's a performance, what voice did you use out in public and what voice did you use in private? To tell you that you have to put on a performance even if you don't think you're putting on a performance. And folks who go and they can't shift gears tend to have a lot harder time with things. So it's like if you're meeting with a certain people, when I had to run around, especially in the earlier years of my business, getting my business together, I had to run around from this company, that company, that company, that company, that company. But I had this ability to empath personalities of people that I was meeting. There are individuals who are like brick walls that there's no way, in the world you're going to get through their brick wall. But anyone who had a little bit of a fissure, a little bit of a crack there, or their little, like hole to observe you from, I would always be able to, reach in and connect with them on some level. So it's talking about being empathetic. So again, it does feel like maybe Disney was doing some appeasement for women or something like that. So I don't know we didn't get the list of directors on this.
Right.
They couldn't find them.
I
But I would say.
I could find it, but if you're interested.
No
need.
Well, for me, it seems like they definitely had women involved in this production.
Yes, it says written and directed by Kristen Lester.
Okay, so, I believe Kristen as a female, even though there's some dudes in Kristen. But anyway, I would say that Kristen, was, as a woman, it could be akin to, I forgot what, it was a term they used to address discrimination against women and other people of color in corporations in America. It was called Affirmative Action, actually. To pull someone in because it was like this voice that was, put the wall up and just pushing people out. So if Purl hadn't figured it out and thought, well, maybe this is an angle I can use, I'll go in there and not emulate these guys. So it shows that she was observant also. She wasn't just beaten down, and then eventually she's just this, in this corner with her, ball of yarn or whatever, being ignored by these guys. Because she went in for a reason. She wanted to succeed at whatever it is. And again, it's all driven by, money, monetary, taking care of yourself. You gotta work and so on and so forth if you want to take care of yourself, unless you were born independently wealthy or something. So on the regular level that most people are, you have to figure your way out through this stuff. And I give that character credit that she was observant, and this is how these guys, roll. And as a female, how can I, infiltrate this so I can get what I want from it? And yeah, she ended up doing certain things, getting, sick drunk is really not very good for your health, for one. But you know, she experienced it, you know. So we all, I would say we all, but I say most people, unless they're really afraid of stepping outside of their comfort zone, when they go to a new place or you're dealing with new people and they don't seem like they're just, you know, totally out to, you know, to slit your throat right out the bat. Sometimes you kind of experiment with what they're doing. You know, as long as you're not experimenting with shooting up, you know, heroin or anything like that. But I'm talking about, you know, what we're talking about in the video, that she experimented. And she found that these guys are kind of simple-minded. That they got confused as to whether she was a woman because all of a sudden she's coming in with a more masculine approach. You know, the way she's telling jokes. Even what was pretty clever was the way that they had her laughing. Just like from the guys, you know, the way they had her laughing and so on, which was really cool. I mean, I could relate to that, you know, going in there and being a chameleon of sorts. But she did, you know, then it showed that she, I guess they were trying to show that she had immersed herself because that was her environment. And then someone who came out from the outside, you know, she realized that she was an outsider like the little yellow ball of yarn. And her empathy, you know, kicked in. And maybe it's like time now to, you know, to make the change. I've won these saps over. And they depend on me. They give me more responsibility. That's usually what happens. When you get more responsibility, you have more clout. If they can't find someone who can do what you do as well as you do it, then, you know, they're, you know, between a rock and a hard place, then you can make certain demands or certain suggestions that are really demands undercover. So, you know, they couldn't show a full-length movie showing the total development of how something like that would happen. But then, you know, fast forward, the office is more integrated with, you know, women, different, you know, certain types of males, and so on and so forth.
And you would say she's not that easily manipulated. Otherwise, she would have become them.
She would have become there and never had gotten out. She would have been afraid to get out. So in one sense, her character is braver than the men that she was mimicking. Because a lot of these guys, they stay in those clutches because they're afraid of what the other guys are going to say. So they're afraid of being ganged up on by the other guys. She already came in, you know, she's not a dude. So she has to use her wits to actually succeed in what she, you know, what she wanted to do. Whether it's good or bad, you know, being involved in corporations, that's whatever. Corporations, again, are just things that are put here as part of the system, and you know, and it always leads to things, I would say, as a majority that aren't balanced in the world. And later, for individuals talking about recycling centers and so on and so forth, you wouldn't need recycling centers if you didn't have corporations who are creating shit that needed to be recycled. So, anyway, with that said, you got anything else to add to that, Mrs.A?
Well, I think the questions will be a great segue to other going more in depth in that concept. Okay, next question says, can you define true masculine energy and true feminine energy, and what role do they play?
Okay. Well, the concept of true masculine and true feminine energy are programs.
Oh!
That, because, again, what I teach, your consciousness first. There's no sexual organs on consciousness. So your consciousness first. Even those who delve into past life, people who read past lives and so on, there are numerous individuals who've had male expressions or male lifetimes and female lifetimes. Sometimes, because of how the system works, things get jumbled up, and they like it jumbled up, where a female will come in and she has more masculine tendencies, or she may be more attracted to women sexually, and vice versa. Because you are consciousness first. And two, this was something that was kind of on the fringes of the New Age movement, reading all these books, the anima and the animus and so on. And these were, again, these books are about separating gender, which made them, I mean, I spent a lot of time reading things that I don't subscribe to at all. And even after I read them, I would always question what I'm reading because my intuition, my higher consciousness intuition is saying, I don't think this really, this really jives. So again, your consciousness first. The feminine is a program, masculine in this world is a program. We talk about feminine and masculine universally. That's just our terms to describe something that we don't have words for. To me, it's just balance. So yin yang, the balance. One pushes the other, and not in an aggressive way, in a nice flow. Because aggression destroys. So I was going to say something having to do with, man, I almost came. Well, let's move to the next question.
Next question?
It'll
come back, yes. Because interesting enough, a lot of these videos that we have all deal with densities, the way that they move in terms of fragmentation and separating things that don't need to be separated or should not be separated.
Yeah.
So the question is, were all consciousness on Dunya ever expressed as only women?
No. Again, that's the lockdown from the system. You're playing into either these guys here or these gals here, when, again, everybody's consciousness playing roles and intermixing roles and so on and so forth. It's like what I brought up the game of like basketball when I was in school, and in the boys basketball, of course, it's the shirts and the skins. So you have a multicultural school, and all the guys are there, different groups, different cultures, different heights and so on and so forth. And we're gonna play basketball, coach. Okay, you guys over there are gonna be shirts, and you guys are gonna be skins. But before, they were just a jumble of guys. But what he just did, he just separated them, and now this guy, you guys are gonna be adversaries. It depends on whether you're wearing a shirt or not, as to what side you're going to be on and who you're going to be against. So there's times, you got your friends in the, in the same class, and you end up being a shirt, they end up being a skin. This is, it doesn't get super violent. I mean, anyone who's been in, high school gym situations, especially males, there are times when stuff gets a little intense. But anyhow, this is akin to what goes on in this world where you are all consciousness, but something says, all right, you're going to be guys, and you're going to be women. And there's this issue between you because the program is designed to cause issues. And one side says, empathy, the hell with empathy, makes you like them. And whatever women say that they don't want to deal with, that makes them like the dude. Here's the insanity of it. Over the years, and because I'm comfortable, being around women because I grew up with so many of them, I could hear them talking at times, and even women who are so-called friends of mine, they're talking and overhearing them talking, and their annoyance with men, the problem with men, men bad, and so on and so forth. And then after they finish all that rant, say, oh, I wish I had a boyfriend. It's insane, literally. So again, looking at it, was there a point where there was all women, because women are better than men? Everybody's messed up. It's just the style of mess up. So with me, when I get deep into what's going on, there's issues with both sides. But yeah, they like the way that they control men, especially the Western male concept of, or I shouldn't say just Western, because there are a lot of chauvinistic countries out there, where male dominated cultures, because whatever the program they have in a lot of men buy into lack of empathy. In order for you to move forward, you can't care, about who you're pushing out of the way, who you're stepping on to get to the goal. And what is the goal? Ego or a bunch of money? You get your bunch of money and your big old ego, and you chase everyone away from you. And they like to show these movies of these guys who tycoons who killed and murdered, and lie their way supposedly to the top. Who defines what the top is? Big house, big car, a supposedly nice neighborhood with who knows what's going on in them, how they got there, who they worshiped to get there, how many babies they had to sacrifice to get there.
Well, Chief, please correct this if it's wrong, but I'd say women have bought into the same program of being ruthless or heartless or cruel. And when it comes to getting a man, they'll step on a bitch's neck in a heartbeat without even a care in the world, be like, all's fair in love and war, right? And they act like men are worse because they're so brutal. But the shit that the women will do, poison other women, just slander them all the time, being really catty and bitchy, it's about the same.
Yeah, well, again, and you're totally correct. And again, that's what I'm saying. There's a different way that women will lash out and behave very negatively, as well as a group. I shouldn't say because there's always exceptions to the rule, but there is a large mindset that is always programmed through movies and music and just the damage of the parental units. Some of the things that older women will say to younger women that are really not helpful, or their behavior towards them, can, really, be not helpful at all. Or when I was dealing with men's groups, sometimes we would interact with women's groups, which weren't often, but what would happen, the women would, pumping their fists up in the air, girl power and all this other stuff. And when we walk in, and if there's a number of good-looking guys in the men's group coming in, all of a sudden, women start, challenging each other as to who's going to get the cute guy. After all of this girl power, it's all about us sisters. He's hot. Later for you bitches.
Yes, and Chief, when you were talking about how notoriously in history they paint men as like, yeah, they'll kill women and children, but women will try to trap a man with a baby and then treat that baby like shit for the rest of its life. That's worse.
Or for instance, say the man has a daughter from a previous marriage. Mm-hmm. That marriage goes kaput.
Yes.
He's out there, but he has, a good relationship and a strong relationship with his daughter because he feels that that's very, a positive thing, so that she won't go out there and be attracted to some, person who's going to be abusive to her. Mm-hmm. So he's showing her a certain way that he thinks, the kind of man that he thinks she should be interested in. Mm-hmm. And of course, especially at a certain age group, man comes out, and even if they know they're going through divorce, they start sharpening their talents and and ready to pounce even before the papers or something. And one of the things, the casualties a lot of times, because there are a lot of dudes who are not very, sensitive to what's going on around them, they will sacrifice their own kids for a new relationship. And also, it goes the other way too. You've heard some really extreme things about women who kill their kids in order to free themselves up for some guy that they think might be interested in. So again, I've experienced, the one with the daughter being just really mistreated by women who were interested in being around me, which I thought was total insanity. You know, and I've even said to one individual, I was in the operating room when she came out of her mother's womb. I don't even know you, but you want me to chop my daughter's head off because of what? Some of them do things like, man, oh, I got money, I got money. I'd say, I have this establishment, All you need to do is sacrifice your daughter. So you think of someone who's like that, why would I want to know you if you're that ruthless? So again, when we talk about what I had wanted to mention, the thing that I forgot earlier, has to do with certain men who have issues around a certain type of men. And this is some of the stuff that I looked into years ago, decades ago as well, having to do with the masculine and feminine inside of each consciousness, which goes along with what I said, that your consciousness and you should have all those components within you, and that's what creates balance. If women have what they consider to be a masculine and feminine energy inside of them, that is a balance. It doesn't mean that your masculine is going to one has to dominate the other. They're supposed to work very much like the yin yang symbol, and it's supposed to work, be in balance, not in extreme, but in balance with one another. So even the whole, even dealing with the gender thing, it's about sex too. Who you want to sleep with, So you've been dictated to. And so, of course, you're going to have certain questions that reflect the information that has been available to you, which is primarily lies, misinterpretations, and so on. Because they don't, this world doesn't care whether you have a good life. They're not interested in a good life. They're interested in you struggling. Because they don't eat the good life. They can't eat that. They survive through your stress and your pain and your aggravation. If that wasn't the case, this world wouldn't be the way it is. It's the way it is because something was benefiting from the way it is. Okay? Did I miss anything?
No, not at all. Sorry, I raised my voice because sometimes it gets tiring when women come up to you and expect you to be on team vagina and war against the men when their consciousness too, and they don't realize that they've had past expressions when they were men. So how can you war against something, you've had the same experiences, similar experiences, but like you said, it's about the shirts and the skins, dividing.
Yeah. In other words, you're okay with each other until somebody decides there's a division. But also, there's a lot more to it. Like I said, there is serious programming that goes on. There's individuals who are very, very sensitive, as well, who to hear the subliminal messages, literally, to this particular person, felt like it was coming from satellites or something, because it was resonating throughout, it seemed like the whole area. And they had, at that time, it was them trying to support this Gulf, war debacle that they were getting into, which is just, another excuse to create more essence. And she woke up and heard this chant going, USA, USA. And it just went on and on and on and on. She heard it, but the mother unit didn't hear it. A lot of other people didn't hear it. So there's a lot of things that attack your subconscious that you're not even aware of. Not to mention all the attachments and all the MCs and all the other things I talked about, And it's not as daunting as it seems, because guess what? It's all targeting one thing: your mind. So if it can overwhelm your mind, that's how they get you. So realize, when I'm doing these sessions with individuals, I'm teaching you something. I'm trying to teach you to get control of your own mind, your own intent, The exercises of containing, when I said use the visuals in the beginning, that's to help your consciousness focus. I said use your mind. I said, oh, your imagination. Oh, imagination. Oh, didn't I just imagine that? And then again, something I've said before, more than a few times, everything starts from imagination, which it starts from the mind.
And your brain is not your mind.
And the brain is not the mind. Tell you for a fact, anyone who's ever done out of body or astral traveling, you don't take the brain with you. And those who are connected by the strand, that's not connecting you to your brain. That's connecting you to the avatar. So you just don't get away. Like I said, when I would go out, I never ever saw that silver string that certain individuals talk about. Because I wasn't, and I'm not of this system. Therefore, I went a lot of interesting places. And it stopped, I would say, a number of years ago. Because I have to admit, the more I looked at people here and looked at how they were just robotic in the way that they were following this, following that, and so on and so forth, the whole, even what's going on now, even though it seems very cool that there's all this protest going on about this corona lockdown nonsense and these cards and everything. If anyone really wants to check, you can find out that not everybody's going along with this shit, and a whole lot of people are not going along with this stuff. The fact that they're pushing as hard means they're not getting what they want. They want control. They want you to just do anything that they want you to do. So just the fact that you can't even tell, this is a freaking scam. Why should I, trust someone that I know historically lies? You don't have to watch conspiracy, movies or read conspiracy books. Just pay attention to what they call history, and you'll see that the system lies its butt off. But there's people, I'm afraid of getting out of step with everyone because maybe they'll just browbeat me, or maybe they'll torture me in Guantanamo, or maybe they'll do. Because you've forgotten that your consciousness first. This is just an expression. But anyway, I'll leave it right there.
Well, Chief, there's like a true logic that is coming out today, and if you'd like to explain it, I'll read it here. So,
okay, you can read it first.
Okay, great. It just has images of like a protest in Brazil, and it's like there's so many people on the street, you can't see the street, and there's aurora borealis and wildfires, and then Dunya opening up, and volcanoes, and I believe it's meteor showers. They call it meteor showers. And then, lightning of sorts, and then lights in the sky and water dropping down, which I did a post about that yesterday. And there's like really huge hail. And the quote says, divide and conquer. Everything is connected. If they can get you to compartmentalize your mind, you are conquered. That's why the whole male against female thing is density, just mind screwing you.
Yeah. Thanks for reading that. I'm going to try to figure out exactly where to start. Now you said.
I can read it again.
Yeah, go ahead and read it, because when you added the other thing.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right. It's not your fault. It's just how my mind works. I go in whatever direction, I see the light turn on. Right. But anyway, go ahead.
Divide and conquer. Everything is connected. If they can get you to compartmentalize your mind, you are conquered.
Okay, there we go. So again, as the imagery that Mrs.A, was showing to you, all of these things that are going on, most people are just looking at one thing, or a lot of them aren't looking at it at all. This can be a number of things. Someone being afraid to see reality, that reality is changed, not changing. Well, I'd say changing, but it's already changed, but it's in the process of changing even more. So, they want to look at, at what they call natural disasters. They call natural disasters. One consciousness natural disaster is another consciousness freedom. So Dunya is freeing herself. And that's what all that stuff is about. So, the corona stuff, the natural disasters, so-called stuff, in its various forms with tornadoes, an amazing number of water spouts that have never been seen in that number before, odd-looking tornadoes and things like that, crafts in the sky that at times are interacting with some of these things, like some orb that shows up along the side of a volcano and does something, shoots a laser or something from it, and then next thing, when it takes off, next thing you know, the volcano erupts. Or a lightning bolt from cloud, thick cloud cover, hitting a volcano, and then it erupts. Or number of tremors and small earthquakes underground, then these volcanoes erupt. Even things where we've seen footage of just the land undulating. This is, they said, well, that's got to be an earthquake. They said there's no earthquake monitors going off, but the land is doing this. Or a guy who woke up who had this big farm or ranch or whatever, all of a sudden he realizes this ranch has been separated by this ravine that seemed to open up overnight, to the point where he's looking down at that, and he'd have to build a bridge over it to get to the other part of the property. All these things are connected. So if you can't see it, it means that you're not connected to Supreme Consciousness universe. Everything in the universe is connected. Everything on Dunya, Gaia, Earth, is connected. Even when, like decades ago, where they're showing footage or snapshots from one of the space centers or spacecraft that they were shooting up into the atmosphere. And when you look at the planet, you don't see borders. The only way you can tell where you are has to do with the shape of the land. And if you ingrain in your mind where borders are, then you can maybe tell what borders are. But in reality, everything is created. Everything, is connected. So when we talk about compartmentalizing, it has to do with putting blinders on for linear thinking, tunnel vision, where you only see what's in front of you, and then, they say, okay, now we're going to talk about this subject, and so when you go to this subject, you cut out the other subject that you were, engrossed in. And then there's times where some creative little soul, usually some kid in school, how does that relate to that? And a lot of times the program instructor will say, well, we're not talking about that, we're talking about this. And literally it's breaking you down, telling you that it's not good to look at everything at the same time. So compartmentalization is the shutting down of a person's focus so that you don't see the whole picture. You're trained not to see the whole picture. Or if you're someone who sees a broader picture than the people you're around, you will want to discuss it with someone, because that's part of what a consciousness likes to do. Likes to share its, and wants to learn. Your core consciousness wants to learn. If you're somebody who doesn't want to learn, you're literally dead. Your consciousness, your high consciousness is in a coma. And it's on its way to becoming like, black loose briquette. A nothing that exists. So that's what the compartmentalized, we're going to talk about compartmentalization. It's literally shutting down your ability to see the big picture. They do it all over the place here. That's why, I got to the point where I was talking about certain religious organizations, but I said, you know what? This whole thing is religion. So corporations are religion, schools are religion, everything's religion. Because they have a certain format that they use to block out things. Just pay attention to our mantra, read the spell book, stay within the spell book. People who are zealous usually seem crazy. You know, there are folks, I go to church every so often. And then the zealots knocks on the door, you should be going all the time. Mrs.A can tell you that there, you know, not just Sundays for certain people that they show up, if they're willing to show up, which when I was growing up, that was a whole lot of, you know, showing up at church every Sunday. But that was the generation I was growing up in. The older folks who were into religion, what do you mean? It's too much to go every Sunday. But then you find those who are really into it. And how often did you have to go to that?
Pretty much every day, actually.
Yeah, her every day. The father was a pastor, and those who I knew whose fathers weren't pastors, who were just, you know, these staunch, you know, religious individuals, they were there at least 3 to 4 times a week. So it's literally a programming system. Everything here is a programming system. So I'm not going to say, or this is a programming system. School's a programming system too. Major companies is a programming system. What Purl was dealing with the program in that company she was working. You know, their religion is to be good old boys who talk sports and aggression and, you know, maybe we should nuance things. Maybe we should be more sensitive. Later for sensitivity.
You're saying, Chief, that everything is a religion. So some people, when they come out of church, or what if they've never been in church, they look for like the Bible. They can find it in movies. They can find it in all kinds of things. But I've just noticed that they, like, for example, people who their religion is anime. They dress like the character. They know the lines verbatim, just like in church. You know, people can quote you scriptures. When they're real zealots, they just start, you know, transforming into this, whatever the system, whatever the program of that, you know, particular industry is. Or, for example, like in the business, Purl was struggling with not becoming, you know, a whole zealot for bro.
Yeah, right. The name of the company is
Bro advertising. I forget what it was, but yeah. So she was trying to infiltrate, to change it, instead of becoming a zealot and a zombie of the program or of that particular religion. You know, like sports heads, when they really get into their religion of sports, they start wearing, you know, face paint and, you know, bare chest in the winter.
Yeah, well, those, yeah, you would consider if it was what they call, you know, religions or whatever. Those folks would be considered zealots.
And if you talk bad about their celebrity, they want to kill you and stuff.
Yeah, or if you talk bad about their sports team, they want to kill you.
Yeah.
Or the thing that was going on, I don't know if it still goes on. I don't follow as much of this stuff because it's all nonsense to me. With the soccer hooligans, you know, that I think was going on in certain areas in Europe, where these guys, you know, go in primarily to cause a problem, but they are supporting their team in a weird way, but they come in and they expect, you know, to get into some fighting and, you know, or some kind of disorder. So again, those guys are zealous, but the pious who are in their religious organizations, those heathens, those savages, those this, those that. They said, well, this religion said something bad about your religion. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know, then they rip their shirt off and paint their faces and go after. You know, there's no difference. You know, again, that's where compartmentalization damages. You can't see how maybe you're doing things that are similar to people that you don't necessarily agree with do. How you are affected by the system that you're growing up in, by all these little things that they do to support the system, all the little underhanded things. So the whole concept of what's fair doesn't exist in this world. Not with the system. You can try to be a fair person. You know, I try to be a fair person. And I work hard to be a fair person. I just can't deal with individuals I'm trying to be fair with not accepting me being fair because, again, he's being fair. It's like that, he's being a little soft and, understanding. That's somebody else's thing. They'll say that's women's thing, but they don't know women. But they'll say that's a woman's thing. Women do that a lot of sensitivity, and they use that against a lot of women. The system does. That's he's just he's a sucker, man. Let's just take all this shit and just, But if you're balanced, you can be fair, empathetic, and you can be stern when it calls for it. So it walked into my zone. Unfortunately, because of my experiences in the game of relationship over the years, I had to, whenever a woman would say, "You're a nice guy," that was like kryptonite, man. Because when I was in my late teens and going in my early 20s, nice guy meant sucker. Oh, I could control him. And me as a consciousness, I'm not into controlling anybody but myself. So, in a relationship, I say, oh yeah, you do what do your thing. As long as you're not stepping on my feet, I don't care. No, I need you to tell me what to do. Strong arm me. So I said, well, I'm not really into strong arm. I got my own thing going on here. And strong arming you is going to take away from the energy I can put into something creative. Can't you control yourself? Can't you do something within and balance yourself? And this isn't just one situation. This is like numerous situations because of the programming. Programming causes people to shut down in a way where they can't see the bigger picture.
It seems like guys with sensitivity, they get targeted not just by men with aggression, but women with aggression as well. They get it really hard.
Yeah, from both ends. Even a woman who's very, very sensitive, she gets it from women, she gets it from guys.
Yes.
People who are more, what that means, it means you're more balanced with what they call the masculine and the feminine, which I don't like using the terms, but that's all I have right now to describe it. You're more balanced in how you live and how you do things. You don't feel like you have to, batter down every door with a baseball bat or a sledgehammer. You can finesse at times. When Neanderthal come up, just put the bulldozer together and push the whole thing down. Say, whoa. There are things that can be useful inside of that structure. Let me try mine. And you go in and finesse, and you say things, and you kind of win the people over. They open the doors, you come in, and then you start this rapport, and everybody wins. System doesn't want everyone to win. That's why they love competition so much. That's why they push competition. Look, if you want to play sports, do what the hell you want to do. Again, I'm not into controlling anyone, but I'm just telling you what it is. So if you want to play the game, I don't care. I have my movement to concern myself with. Not every person who wants to play sports. That's how you let off steam? Fine. That's where you are? Fine. I'm here. If you want to be here, you come on your own steam. If you don't want to be here, fine. I know where I'm going, and it isn't predicated on whether everyone comes with me or not. That's a sickness too. We got to get everybody on the same page. Everyone has to be on the same page. That, again, tunnel vision. You're not giving respect to those who don't want to come. At the end of my book, people have the right to walk into as many walls as they want to. They say, well, you're looking down on them as you're saying they're walking the walls. I'm just telling the truth. People are walking into walls I've walked into in the past while I was on my journey, learning, enlightening myself. So what? That's where they are. That's where they are. But I don't know if I got way off track here.
No. The next question, if you'd like me to read it for you.
Sure.
Did density create men or the concept of men, excluding Chief, or does density favor men because they're more easily manipulated as puppets?
Density doesn't really favor anybody. And again, it's a feminine, view of the masculine, a woman's view of men, which means that you still, I mean, this is maybe the first time I've actually really got into it deeply, that you're a consciousness. So you're looking at these guys who are like what's called method actors, who forgot that they were who they were before they, dressed up like whatever character in the play. And then they have a system that tells them, we gotta all stay like this, and I would say, well, how can we just like make it a little, and all of us, the big guy who's Mr. whatever, Mr. Man or whatever, says, no, that's just the way it's gonna be, and you with that sensitivity, get the hell out of here. Or, fall in line or get lost, or we'll beat you down. Same thing with a female. Which is, like I said, it's literally insane after dealing with, growing up with a lot of women and dealing with a lot of women out in my life, away from, when I grew up, where hate men, want man. So it makes you crazy. Because there's this thing that says, choose this or that. Do you hate men and don't want to be with men? Okay, so some women don't want to be men, then they don this other thing. Oh, men. Later from the guy who actually has more of a balance in his energy, which means he's not really going to approach a woman in an aggressive way. And a lot of times I've had older women, decide they wanted to, confess or something about how they are as women and how they were as young women. That there were girls who, and maybe even herself, well, I don't think she was so much that way because, again, not everyone is exactly the same, but she definitely knew that the overwhelming number of women that she knew when she was in high school, girls, were into bad boys. Because all I could see was from that little tendency past the tip of the nose that if you get involved with someone like that, especially with women, that's one of the things that really is one of these feeding mechanisms that in an interaction with sexuality, who gets pregnant? And unless you can convince a guy who may not really like you, who really is just into, booty call, to hook up with you and try to raise this product of your interaction, you're going to be raising that kid by yourself. Then they're going to be mad because, this guy, he whatever, and say, well, it takes two to tango unless he really, raped you. But it was a situation where you're playing this game and you ended up being the one carrying the bag. What can you say? All of a sudden, I don't want to see my part in it.
Then they blame the kid because it reminds them of their mistake.
Yeah, blame the kid. This kid looks too much like the father. I've seen this over and over again. Or someone on the father's side of the family or whatever. The kid ends up suffering. So, again, we can talk about men, but let's talk about women as well. And again, yeah, they love this scenario where we got these, these yahoos over these, companies or whatever who are men. But I've been out there. There are more than a few women who control companies, control their own companies. One was my client. I did work for Martha Stewart for several decades. She controls her company. But you know what? She has to have that kind of stance too, to deal with the boys.
Last question, Chief.
Yeah.
Does Dunya need masculine energy and feminine energy to be balanced?
Yeah, again, it is balance. Balance, masculine and feminine is just the word that, the system brings up to create separation again. Balance is balance. Everything flows. And even the sign, the yin yang sign symbol, in truth, The separation doesn't even exist. Balance spins on its own. Balance moves on its own. Balance expands. And it expands in really tap into it and get through your fear of everything in this realm. You can start to feel true balance and how it flows. And lock into that instead of what they keep, through a loudspeaker. Be afraid, uncertainty, be afraid, uncertainty, be afraid, you can die. Everything they're saying is a lie. You don't have to be afraid of anything. As a consciousness, you certainly don't. There's no permanent death, but there can be deletion. But if I'm living in squalor and I've got people throwing trash at me and kicking me in the ribs all the time, and they say, well, here's your out. You can be deleted. Oh, I'm afraid of death. Oh. This doesn't hurt. What you're going through hurts and damages. I don't know, but I don't know why I have this fear. Because fear isn't real. Fear is a program. Keep you in the chicken coop. To keep you pumping out essence to those who are feeding. Happens in families. They designate one kid, which isn't designated by the family unit themselves, is designated from the other side. Again, all of these individuals are affected by attachment and by other things that have certain agendas, who know your history as far as your existence better than you do. And they have a key individual who may have been a problem to them. We're going to put you in the middle of these guys who are really well programmed, and they'll do our bidding. So you end up with a kid who gets dogged and beaten down and denigrated constantly, because it's to break them down so that they fall in line with all the other drones, all the other robots. So everything that's going on, even governments are doing these little things. I mean, they were threatening to do that, what they're trying to do now, at least 30 years ago, when I first started reading this stuff. They're trying to microchips this, and it all had to do with, we're just monitoring you for your safety. Yeah, you failed to mention the, thousands of people who die from your experiments. But it's to help people. Well, how come you're sacrificing so many people? Supposedly to help people. You're liars. You're not helping anybody. You don't want to help anybody. You want to control the food and continue the feeding. Oh, there are pictures of people in hospitals. I was in advertising. They set shit up. Anyone really wants to see something that they slipped out because they make fun of you, wag the dog. Watch it. Get a little idea of what's going on. They're actually telling you on a certain level how they do things. It's not fantasy. They'll throw reality in front of you and then say, it's fiction.
And you were talking about, Chief, some people believe like that they're going to find a message from density to themselves in media, but they do it more so for their own entertainment and watching all the drones just believe them.
Yeah, well, they don't like people can connect things. That's why there's walls. They don't want you to connect things. So I'm going to go to Santa Claus. And, Mrs.A is talking about density, showing things to the public to entertain themselves by how the public swallows it and reacts to it. So, I had a lot of parents who kind of looked at me cross-eyed when I said, I'm telling my kids, when they were really little, kids, it was Santa Claus, but I wasn't even raised with that crap myself. But say, it's good. It's just something fun. That's not serious. It's just like fun. And this little kid's running around. Where does Santa Claus? You bring me, Look at Santa Claus. Look at that. You write your letter to Santa Claus, and I think there's like a ton of letters still to this day every year that's sent to the North Pole
Oh, yeah.
And they think it's really just cute and funny. It is damage, man. How dare you say our cute and funny fun is damaging? Because it is. I told my kids, ain't no freaking Santa Claus bringing you gifts. I bought them or your mom bought them. So they go, okay, Dad, here's what I want for Christmas. You're coming to the right source, kid. I may get it for you, I may not. Depends on you. So my kids were up ahead of the curve, ahead of everyone. But one, I mentioned it before, where they were in, living up in the Woodstock area, Bearsville. They're in this, this little general store next to the post office, and they're in there, getting their sweets or whatever with the mother unit. I was working, and they come back and tell me that some old fart came into the, into the store while they were in there, trying to buy their goods. Said, hey, kids, what's Santa gonna get you for Christmas? And they said, excuse me, there's no Santa Claus. It's almost like they drove a stake into his heart or something. And then he called them losers. You're a bunch of losers. Little kids. I have very little empathy for the programmers in the program. People buy into the program, I don't want to see you. And unfortunately, for some of you, you have family units or are programs, and you try to send them to me, and I'm kind of like, I already feel this. Okay, fine.
And they end up being kind of rude or something.
They end up being rude. They want to, try to challenge me. They haven't done any homework. They've never been on a website. All they know is a family member who they don't have the most trust in, because they think you're a flake because you're searching for answers. That's another thing. How dare you search for answers outside of the system? You're a flake. But in reality, you're the smartest one in the fucking room. Excuse my language.
That's interesting, Chief, because...
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No.
Okay, I was just, you were talking about people coming, and when we put out that ad for, people coming for the group training and healing circle, there was a lot of people who replied, but as soon as we showed them your website where people were telling their personal experiences with how much you changed them during sessions, just crickets.
Yeah, a lot of people sending, want to know more. Some didn't look, and then they gave a thumbs up.
Yeah,
that's
it.
I've heard of.
Crickets.
But it was an experiment anyway,
It
just
was.
to see,
Very interesting.
how receptive, those who were actually watching these forums, like I said, in secret, their own, guilty pleasure or whatever. And there were a number of people, quite a few people who were interested, but I think what's happening, and we talked about that, they want to see something outside of the exorcism. Because, that sort of tightens into those rectums when they see something like that. So they want to see just a regular session in how I work on someone's issues, and I pretty much guarantee that those individuals who are sitting on the fence, I just want to see something first before I commit to this. Because also, their little, MCs are there, their attachments are saying, this guy's creepy. Isn't he kind of creepy?
Us just don't want to.
Us just don't like this. What's scary about the clips and outtakes? People saying that they've been affected in positive ways by having sessions. But if I laced it with Christianity, have a cross there or whatever, I bet you they just like, yes.
It's not ordained by the
Yeah,
system.
it's not ordained. I'm not ordained by the system. And I never will be ordained by the system.
Okay, Chief, we have like about 30 minutes left.
Okay,
33 minutes.
Right.
Should I move on to the day and night? Because the other ones might, I know 20-something might take much more than 30 minutes to go through.
Okay.
And so day and night is about,
Yeah, day and night might be a quick one, or it may not, depends on,
can carry it over into the women's forum if you think so.
No, we'll see.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you said go ahead with day and night?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do it tonight. What scene is going on now?
This is a. It says one cannot exist without the other, and it has
a new age flavor, almost like everyone's the same. You know, when night and day go to sleep, you know, they have the same color. Almost like you need each other, or
That's a big difference.
okay, thank you. Okay. So it was in Russian because it was on YouTube.
Oh.
But the subtitles were in English, but it does have to do with like when we're all the same, or like if we get in each other's shoes, we'll realize, you know, this program.
Yeah, it's definitely smacks of new age. Again, interesting on a certain level. It's manipulative on a larger sense. If again, it has to do with the concept of where we are in this particular world is all there is in the universe. That has nothing to do with anything outside of itself. It's like someone who's just self-centered, and they can't be bothered to even acknowledge anyone that doesn't, I should say, support whatever their little microcosm is about. So again, the day and night punching each other out and so on and so forth. And again, without the introduction of imbalance, through the imbalance, there will be no separation of light, in other words, light and dark. There would be like this concept of something being separate from so. That is something that is fed to you, and I believe that this particular short is also doing a dual thing, where it's feeding the concept of separation exists. Like, it's the norm to be like that when it's not the norm in the universe. And I've had out of my curiosity, my studies and so on, and I've observed a channel some years ago with these atheists, and they would get these calls from periodically. I think sometimes it would set up calls, because some of the people called in were totally ridiculous. But someone who obviously not that swift asked them, well, if you don't go to church, who's going to teach you good from bad? Like, anyone who does not belong to religion is, uncouth, unsophisticated, heathens or something, because they need someone to tell you what your own consciousness can tell you. I didn't go to church. I was a nice kid. A little too nice. It had nothing to do with church because I was nice. If anything, I ran into more nasty people who were going to church.
Yes.
Or other, religious, places. And more trouble with those individuals.
The mother unit, she was like telling me that she was worried that none of my friends were church people anymore. And I said, well, they treat me better than church people do, and she didn't have anything to say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like this club thing, this turn a blind eye to, to the truth of what's outside, and a lot of times, and when I was accompanying girlfriend years ago to church, it was just because she was going, after dark, and her mom was concerned about her being out there, trying to get back home on the bus. So, part of my duty was to go along and accompany her. And I wasn't falling into any of the rhetoric because I'd already been, had my Teflon shield up from that stuff. And that was from individuals who were like the mother unit, father unit, grandmother unit, who literally filled me in on their perceptions of church that they were immersed in it. So I knew what to look out for. But a lot of the, of it had to do with don't, go outside the church. It is sinful to be worldly, which means it's sinful to know anything outside of what they tell you. But what's in that book that a lot of it's kind of hard to understand anyway. But again, Ms. A.
Yes, Chief.
Yeah.
Well, there's some questions that have to do with what you were, with some of the things that you were talking about. Let me see this. It says, it seems like sometimes people have said that people cannot have the good without the bad or the light without the dark. Is day and night trying to convince people that both have to exist, light and density?
In reality, there should be no separation from that concept. In other words, if someone putting the label on something dense, which I would use dense because I didn't like growing up in a society where pretty much most everything that was black was negative.
Mm.
So I use dense, but that's really what it is. So they're telling you that you have a limited choices. And if you subscribe to this realm and think all information has to come from this realm or from the system, then you're not even allowing what's inside of yourself that's questioning it, to come to the surface and have a true logical look at what you believe in. So he said, we have to have this, we don't have to have anything. Newsflash, you don't even have to exist. What are you doing so great in this anthill that's affecting the universe in such a wonderful way that it needs you? When you support movement towards integrating with the real, i.e., Supreme Consciousness universe, broader true universe, then you're doing something worthwhile. Running around just trying to keep your head up above water in a freaking septic tank. It's just you running around trying to keep your head up above water as long as you can so that the system can laugh at you and feed off your misery. So, no, that particular one was, I just like, it's confusing. If you try to buy into it, and what Mrs.A said earlier, people are looking for a Bible and everything. If they leave their temple or their church or house of worship, they inevitably start looking for another Bible. So a lot of times folks are looking at media, or looking at pop stars, or looking at actors or actresses, or I think they're all called actors now, as the way. And don't realize if it's presented in front of you on the screen and it's promoted, it's dense. They're all doing busy work. I have nothing against people's talent. I enjoyed a good movie, but I always dissect the movie while I was watching it. See how it was affecting me. See what subliminal messages are in there. Because I don't have walls. So I allow myself to be. And fortunately, when I grew up, no one was trying to block me into walls except for academia at a certain point in my life. But guess what? Those folks that are around you, they can't tell what you're thinking. And if you find that the resistance, stop talking to them, but still have your thoughts and still do your work, because you're really not alone. And a lot of times you're not alone, and in your company are entities that you really don't want as company. So clearing you, getting rid of attachments, allowing your own essence to come up, allowing doors to open, or where you don't be afraid of something that actually is bringing something really light in there, or something that's scary because he's still in there wanting you to stick with the feeding farm, being in the chicken coop. I've had a number of clients and a number of you are on, on the forum right now who had talked about having a struggle at times in the past with, showing up for your session when the closer it got. To the point where, something says, you don't need the session. No, you don't need the session. It's the density that I pull out and I get rid of permanently. They scared shitless of me. So I'm running around just trying to find heads. I'm just looking for individuals who are capable of being true spiritual warriors. That's what I'm interested in. So, needless to say, I've had a number of, scores of individuals come and they don't make the cut. And it's like, I don't make the cut, you're out or anything like that. I just say, well, you can try as much as as many times as you want through sessions, but a number of them, it was almost as though they was here to try to torment me or something.
Or they prefer their fantasy over
Yeah,
the
they prefer
reality.
their fantasy, what I'm doing is working, so they'll go out and, get all filthied up again, and I was like the car wash. They go out, get the mud and everything, oh man, I feel really, let me call the chief. And then they clear them off. Wow, I feel so much lighter. Okay, right. I said, you don't do your containment? Yeah, I'm going to do it. They don't do the containment. They go out there, jump right into the pig pen again.
And then you see them on Instagram at the clubs in their sparkly red dress. Right after you clear them, you're like, go to sleep, rest after the session.
Let it settle in, it's cool out there, cross-dressing, thing with the guys with beards and dresses and stuff. But again, clubs in general. It's not going to
Clubs
just,
in general,
they're
yeah.
not going to just pick, gay
That was
clubs
just
or
the
whatever.
example.
But that was an example of this particular image that we saw of this person. Didn't I tell her to
Go sleep.
go to sleep? And she's hugging, all these,
Oh my God.
you know.
Well, it's like they have to go hang out and get more attachments to replace what you.
Yeah. So I'm interested in folks who are really interested in doing the work, really. So some things, he wants numbers. I said, I'm just putting out feelers. Just as you found me, there are others who are finding me. So it's not about massive numbers or anything like that. Because where things are going, and if you actually open your eyes and look out, and even the things that Mrs.A posts about what's going on, natural disasters, which aren't really disasters, or they're trying to say climate change. We got to find an answer for it. Really? Now, in all your notes, I never heard any of of this stuff in your climate change predictions that's supposed to happen like it's happening right now.
There was a protester who, I think it was Switzerland, I can't remember, but he jumped on stage, and instead of saying climate change, it just says climate is changing, why aren't we? And you could see the officers that were trying to kick him off the stage, trying to block his poster, oh, don't let anyone see. I'm like, God.
Yeah, but the system doesn't want you to see that it's really coming down. So there's all this desperation. They wouldn't post any, allow many posts having to do with the protests that were growing, having to do with, this hoax. And what I really was kind of endearing to me is that there are a few of these videos where there people came up that it's a hoax. So I'm not this odd person out, and I don't give a rat's butt. No one thinks on the level that that I think on. They're trying to figure out what's going to happen after I go here. Is there a heaven or is there hell? I know what's out there. I'm not afraid of any of it.
You're talking about, Chief, people wanting to be Neo or whatever, but whenever they're faced with, the real, ghosts and demons and things like that, they go running away. But when they think about, they want it in their minds, but when the actuality hits, they don't really want that.
Because they're toddlers. They think of it like a child. They see their older, cousin juggling. Hey, look at that. Wow, that's really cool, man. I want to juggle. And then they get some balls and they just can't get coordinated or whatever. And then they talk to them, how do you learn that? They say, well, I practiced over and over and over and over again. And they go, I don't know if I want to put that much effort into learning that trick. But when Mrs.A was talking about the whole Neo concept, that folks think, it's very much from a child point of view, the Neo thing. You know, that's so cool. I want to be him. And he's just an actor playing a role, interpreting something that the actor doesn't even understand. I mean, there are individuals who think that Keanu Reeves is Neo. You know, they may say, no, I don't, but if they say, you know, he's a really great actor, and I don't think he's that great, especially then, well, I think he, you know, it's like, do you believe he's an actor, or do you believe he's this character that he's portraying? Or even Lawrence Fishburne playing Morpheus. He's not Morpheus. He's a damn good actor, but he's not this, you know, this character. He's pretending to be. He's reading the script and he's interpreting it. So when we get into the work that I do, and Mrs.A's, you know, like right alongside me with this, to the point where I help her get over her fear of looking at certain things. That she used to like, anything ugly, I don't want to see it, I don't want to see it. Or anything had to do with the paranormal, I don't want to see it, I don't want to see it. She's in there like, to the point where we're looking at this stuff because of a lot of it, you know, growing. Even some of the people who are coming in now are experiencing the things on the other side and seeing them, who didn't believe that it existed because they're afraid of what people would say about them, saying that, you know, I see these spirits or whatever these things are walking through my room, or they sit around and look at me through my window. It's, I don't want to hear that stuff because it makes me freaked out. You're just crazy. Shut up.
Want me to show a video, Chief, of the baby in the mirror?
Sure, you can show that one.
Okay, sure.
You want to creep people?
Well, looking at the real is important.
No, it is.
Because ignorance isn't bliss.
See, Mrs.A can look at it and she can get over it. Not that Mrs.A can get over it. Anybody can do it. No, Mrs.A, she works very, very fucking hard. So you need to work hard to get past the things that you're afraid of.
Yes.
So you can show me that.
And there's actually really great things beyond the fear. And actually, I feel so much lighter now that I've actually looked at things with Chief's guidance. And now I actually look forward to seeing the weird things on the videos. So I'll play it.
Nice. Hey, Cheyenne. Is it Duke? Diam deh anak. Dia cepat ambil. Ambil.
Okay. So that video shows the kid. It's hard to see it in the video, but I can add links to the website under the Neo Shamanic Perspective tab. And it has to do with this kid is looking at the mirror, and then even when he looks away, there's an entity staring out, and you can see that the child's eyes become solid black, and then it's like, oh shoot, the mom is recording me, and it does this like fast forward, and then catches up to the child. What? Yes, the image of the child.
Yeah, so this isn't like one of spirit. We've looked through a number of mirror incidents just this year.
I have another one, if you want.
That okay, well, if you think they might be able to see better on this other one.
Yeah, the other one is you don't see the cat's eyes don't turn black, but you can definitely tell there's some.
Is this a mirror one?
This is a mirror one with the cat one.
All right. Wrong one?
No, I just need to catch up to it.
Their mind off the dark and disturbing things they've seen. If you're one of these people, you may think that the following video, posted to YouTube by Michael Stutzfund, is one of those adorable videos. For the first few seconds, it certainly does appear to be a wholesome and fun video of a cat looking at itself in the mirror, perhaps thinking it's another one of his furry friends. It's a cute video right until the end. Take a look. Watching that again, just seconds before the video
Yeah.
cuts off, the cat's reflection in the mirror
turns
to face
back
the
and
cat on the side.
looks at the cat
Mhm.
inside the mirror at the end.
Yeah, because I know that there used to be where individuals say, oh, I think it's some kind of camera trick or something of that sort. I have a barometer for these things. And also I have clients who've experienced these things who question their sanity because others don't want to believe that they've experienced these types of anomalies. So, where I'm at with it, I could give a rat's ass whether a person believes what I do or not. Have a session. I just had a guy that I interacted with who was supposedly a healer himself, and someone wanted to denigrate what I was doing and never had a session. And not just him, and some others said, have you ever had a session with this person? No, but how in the hell do you know what you're talking about? I have. So the things I don't, and Mrs.A knows, I don't buy into everything that's video. There's a number of things that I deem as fake. Things that are real, we will show you. And if they want to challenge me, bring it. If you can do what I do, bring it. Or else, shut up. You know what? I haven't had many challengers because they can't do what I do. So, anyway, with that,
Well, Chief, when you were talking about how people prefer the fantasy of, movies, or the fantasy of their romantic novels, or the fantasy of whatever, religion even, they prefer that fantasy over the reality of paranormal picking up, or the reality of the weather is changing and all that. And because people prefer fantasy over reality, it contributes to their insanity, which they're in denial of.
Yeah, and they're all looking for the comfort. They're always, people as a majority are always looking for comfort zones. I just want to do my time and get out. Like, it's prison and then they get out, then they're going to be free. The way things have been for the longest time, you do your time, you croak, however you transition out, then they just recycle your break back into some other crap. This movement is about dashing out. So when you're free, you're free. But there are so many, like I think it was an example of animal psychologists who had these articles, this is like some decades ago, about animals who were captured really young from the wild. And this one had to do with a gorilla, an African gorilla, that was captured as young, and then was in a zoo all of its life for some 20-some years or whatever. And it was used to being in this small cage. That's where it's leaking orders or whatever. And so they decided, we're going to do this altruistic thing, which, anyway. So they take the gorilla out into, the area where gorillas, roam or whatever, and they open the cage, and the gorilla refuses to come out of the cage. They're going, you're free, you're free, you're free. But he refuses to come out of the cage because he's so acclimated to being in this, because this was his comfort zone for 20-some odd years. When he wasn't out, as a display for people to slather their ooze all over him. Do you think that people have to touch you to ooze you? The eyes are designed to take in this. That's why they use so many visuals to convince you of things. Would you really be afraid of a headless person if you weren't acclimated to something saying that that's scary? Or horror movies accompanying this thing doing some really scary things? And why is it that they're little babies, or little toddlers get to the point where they can actually start to talk, will tell you that there's this person that comes in their room at night. It's not part of the family and talks to them every night. And they're not afraid because they haven't been acclimated to be afraid of it yet. And I would guarantee that all of you know someone who has a story about their kid talking to something at night that they can't see, or talking to something during the day sometimes they can't see. And the kid's fine with it because the kid hasn't been programmed to fear it yet. If they tune him up, here's a horror movie, kid. We're gonna put you right. The next thing, you can't be in the room without the lights, with the lights out. So
there's like drawings of children drawing what's like haunting them at night, and they'll like draw little stick figures, and drew a picture of like entities coming in the window, and then that their parent was angry because they tried to tell them about what was going on, and the parent didn't want to accept the reality that there were things coming into the house.
Yeah, because it disrupts their comfort zone. When I was doing men's groups and some of the retreats, there was, and I might have mentioned the story about this one guy from Ireland who had the classic abuse by the pastor when he was a kid, and the altar boy, he was an altar boy, and sexually abused for a number of years by I think it's a priest or the pastor of a priest, and he told his parents about it, and they literally went off on him, which was, you're lying, this isn't true, because he said their belief was that if they talked against the priest, they wouldn't be allowed into heaven. Or some of these families would send a daughter into, being a nun, or a son being a preacher or pastor, assured their entry into heaven. Regardless as to whether the man's a wife beater and child abuser, if one of his kids become a pastor, stays clean. But that's their illogical comfort zone. But anyway,
It's actually time, Chief. If there's any last things you want to
add. Wow. Well, I never know how long these are going to go.
Yeah, I didn't know this. That was intense.
Half of them. So we will be carrying this over into the women's forum. I guess next week.
Yes, there's the video 20-something has a lot to do with this.
Yeah, 20-something. He has some really interesting things to say, having to do with split consciousness, attachments and fragmentation. It's like it's all in one in this particular short. So anyway, I appreciate everyone again, as always, for attending the forums. And very much all of you who have had questions, appreciate it very much. As long, if you can get the questions in maybe at least 24 hours before the forum, it would help. Because we have to review the questions before we start the forum, and that would be helpful. But again, I appreciate you sitting. So in the end, if that's the only way you can send them in late, send them in late. I'd rather have them than to not have them. But it'll make an interesting forum when I'm, going cold like that. But anyhow, again, thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.